Support for the Lancast is provided by Winey Way Books and Pennsylvania College of Art and Design.
Welcome to the Lancast. I'm David Moulton.
And I'm Keith Slesser. On this episode, we are joined by Josh Rinier of OperaLancaster.
Josh tells us a little bit about what OperaLancaster does.
You know, we want to further align ourselves with the great artistic community that is being put together not only by the professional artists in the community, but at the colleges. And we have Millersville, and it only makes sense for us to go back to F&M. You know, that's kind of been our home. It's where people identify OperaLancaster as performing their fully staged productions, and we're looking at moving back to that space.
He also shares a little of his backstory in opera.
And I would love to sing the role of Sweeney Todd, but I could never sing it because I'm a tenor, and you know, he's down here and I'm all the way up here. So that's pretty much how it goes. And I typically, you know, I'm kind of the opposite of everybody else. I like the villain in the plot, you know, and I would want to be the villain, and tenors are never the villain.
Enjoy the conversation.
Josh, welcome to the Lancast.
Oh, thanks for having me.
So what is your title at OperaLancaster?
I'm the managing director of the opera company, so it's a pretty fun job.
What kind of things does that entail?
It can entail anything from being involved behind stage, but mainly I'm the guy who's working with the board and the president very closely to develop future seasons, to develop funding, especially in the way of fundraising. It also includes not just programming the material, but watching the budgets and telling people how much money they can spend, when they can spend it, how they can spend it. You know, my title is a little bit different than a lot of managing directors or executive directors of organizations in the fact that I'm involved with almost every aspect of the company. There's usually people below the managing director who will take care of a lot of the little functions. And I have people like that in OperaLancaster who are in the form of volunteers and other board members and officers on that board, but this isn't their full-time job. It is my full-time job, and therefore I assume those duties and help people with those functions in the company.
What kind of system does OperaLancaster work on? I mean, is it a mostly volunteer organization?
For most of its history, it has been a generally volunteer organization. We've had a smattering of a few professionals that were similar to me throughout our history, but it's generally been volunteer. I'm the most recent full-time employee of the organization, hired officially in 2010, although I was working almost full-time for the organization for about a year and a half before that as a board member and an intern, developing my position.
The performers that you gain, that you have perform in this, how do you book them or?
Sure. It's actually a very interesting process. I was kind of unaware of how this happened before I got into scheduling and finding artists with the company. And really, when I began with OperaLancaster, it was basically, you know, let's sit around a table and figure out who can sing this role. Do you have any students who can sing this role? You know, whatever. And sometimes if we were doing an opera, like, you know, I think one of the very first times that we did something that was a little bit out of the capability of singers in the general area who were volunteers, we brought in John Fowler to play in Pagliacci. And he's a tenor who had sung at the Met, and it really demanded somebody who had the chops to sing the role, and that's when we first started paying people to sing. And since then, over the course of say 4 or 5 years, we've moved to a point where we are still using local professionals, because one advantage we have of being placed where we are in central Pennsylvania, and because central Pennsylvania and Pennsylvania itself has such a rich culture in the arts, and Lancaster itself, that we are able to find professional musicians, both instrumentalists and vocalists, right within our own backyard. So that's been very advantageous to us. But you know, there are roles in operas, like we just did Tosca back in June, that a lot of these folks cannot sing. I myself am a trained tenor, but I would never think of singing the role of Mario Cavaradossi. It takes somebody who will actually sing for a living to be able to come in and sing the role and sing it well to the point that people can come and really enjoy the production and not be put off by somebody's voice. So that's kind of where we are now. We're bringing in professionals from outside of the area, and we're doing that by a mixed medium of online advertising and some print advertising, but the most beneficial form of advertising for parts that I've found for getting people out of the area is classical singer. And that's where a lot of the professionals look for roles, and it's really helped us. We have a tenor for Madama Butterfly in May coming from Texas, wow. And he's got one heck of a voice. So,
where do you put on your productions?
For the past few years, at least since probably 2006, we've been performing primarily at the Roschel Performing Arts Center at F&M College. This year, we've kind of jumped onto the bandwagon at the Ware Center. We moved my office into that building, and we've also been doing a lot of performances there. We initiated a new series this year called the Community Opera Series, which is kind of a more laid-back version of opera. We'll do one-act English operas with piano in a very relaxed environment, and that space provides that. And we're also going to be doing them all there in January in a very accessible, minimally staged production. So we've kind of jumped into that space for things that aren't fully staged. Now, we did Così fan tutte at the High Fine Arts Center out at Lancaster Mennonite High School to kick off this season. That proved to be pretty successful, and it was a very nice space for us to perform in. It was one of the very few spaces in the area that actually can be adapted to opera, because when you perform opera, you need a stage that has adequate depth, adequate width. It has to have wings off the side of the stage. You have to have a pit orchestra so that opera doesn't lend itself very well to having instrumentalists and singers on the stage at the same time if you're acting as well as singing. So it really requires you to have that separate level to keep the musicians and the singers apart. And it also, for an organization like us, we require, a decent amount of seating, and there are so few spaces that actually fit that in the area when you're doing fully staged productions. So the High Fine Arts Center was one of them, but also is Roschel Performing Arts Center. So we've kind of been focusing on those. Now with Madama Butterfly, we are going to be looking at another space than we had originally planned, actually, for that. We were looking at the High Fine Arts Center, but we want to further align ourselves with the great artistic community that is being put together not only by the professional artists in the community, but at the colleges. And we have Millersville, and it only makes sense for us to go back to F&M. That's kind of been our home. It's where people identify OperaLancaster is performing their fully staged productions, and we're looking at moving Butterfly back to that space. So,
what's your average demographic, I guess you say? I always think of, when I think of opera, I've never actually been to an opera. I've listened to some, on television. I've never been to anything live, but you always see the comedy thing where the cultured wife is dragging her beer guzzling husband to the opera.
Sure.
But what's the demographic of people, especially in Lancaster, that come to the opera?
Our demographic is generally an older demographic, to be quite honest. I'll speak for our generation, just from my standpoint. It took actually being involved in an opera and seeing it live for me to actually catch on to it. Because, canned music, seeing it on TV, looking on YouTube, or listening to it on my iPod, not really thrilling. It just sounds like, I'm not doing anything interesting. I'm basically watching a Bugs Bunny cartoon without the actual cartoon and just listening to the music in the background, But something happened when I saw an opera live for the first time and was in it. And it is actually much more accessible than you think. It's not your fat guy, fat lady, and a pitchfork on stage, singing. It really isn't. That's Wagner, and that's really heavy stuff, and usually only really big opera aficionados like Wagner. A lot of it's very light, and there's quite a few pop tunes that rip off famous opera themes. So it is accessible for young people. Now, with our organization's demographic, it has generally been the older crowd, 50, 60 and above. Since I've been with the organization, and basically over the past 2 or 3 years, we've seen not only have our audiences grown to the point where we sell out, but our audience is getting younger. I watched it drop an average of 20 years to the point that we're kind of honing in on the 45 and above level. So that's been very nice to see. I would like to continue to move that spectrum down and get more people involved with opera, which is why the Community Opera Series was created at the Ware Center, because it's cheap and you can just walk in off the street and be part of that cultural center, which is the Ware Center, and we're there performing. And not to mention, it's our home, so it's very easy now for young people to be exposed.
Do you find it, because you move around a lot, that it's difficult to keep that type of audience following you?
I do actually believe it is difficult to keep an audience when you are changing venues so very often. Up until recently, we were going to be doing a Mall in the Night Visitors at the Fulton, actually. We have made the decision to move that production instead to the Ware Center during the same weekend in a different format, because we are shifting our business model to basically reflect this idea of we need to stick to 1 or 2 different venues and really establish them as a home. And that's one of the reasons for the move back to Roschel, and for identifying ourselves so largely with the Ware Center. And that's how we're going to intend to continue forward as a company into the future. As far as trying to keep the younger audience from a standpoint of, aesthetics, you don't have to come in and think it's this very snobby atmosphere. It really isn't. You can come in your jeans and a t-shirt. You don't have to dress up. It really is much more relaxed than you think it has to be. I mean, up until probably 5 or 10 years, people still thought it was necessary to do the same thing to go see a symphony. I've been to symphonies a lot recently, mainly because we are fortunate to have that here, and I see people in jeans and just regular old street casual clothing. You don't have to throw on the tie. I certainly don't want to throw on the tie, but I have to. But it's not a big to do, and part of my goal with the organization is to continue to make us more appealing to the younger crowd, so that they don't come in with this perception that we are so snobby and elitist.
Have you performed in opera?
Yes.
Yeah. What well, I guess 2-part question. What operas have you performed in, and which ones are your favorite?
The only opera I have performed in, on a level where it's been actually fully staged, was A Mall in the Night Visitors. It's kind of the staple of OperaLancaster, and they do it. We do it. Not they. We do it so much that when I began with the company in 2007, that's the opera that I performed in, and I performed the role of Casper. Which is a delightful little role, and it's a great way, and it's in English, so it's easy to learn, I can tell you that. And it's a good first-time see from both an audience standpoint, and it's a great first-time participate, actually on stage in an opera, because it's so accessible, and it's in English, and it's fun, and it's only 60 minutes long. Operas that I absolutely love, and I'll be frank, and I kind of wear this on my sleeve to a lot of my peers. Opera is not my most loved art form, and it takes a lot for me to actually like an opera. I like Faust and Manon. There's very few I like if an opera's in French, I usually like it because, and I usually like it in French is because French is a language that the only other language that I know other than English, so I can actually sing it well, as opposed to something like German or Italian, which is kind of rocky. So and my voice also lends itself to the French style of writing and music, so I will tend to like operas that are French.
Well, speaking of different language operas, how do people tend to enjoy them when they can't understand them?
If it's a well-written opera, which it's the only kind of opera that we'll do, you can access what's going on stage by the interaction between the characters and also the music lines themselves. A composer who's particularly good at this, and he wrote the opera that we're doing this spring, Madama Butterfly, is Giacomo Puccini, and he can write a line, and if he's expressing love in a situation or hatred, or even to the point where the character is going to off themselves, which often happens in opera because they're all tragedies. Every single one of them is a Shakespeare play almost. So, but you can actually feel that emotion through the music. We also help out the audience by putting up super titles so that you can actually read what's going on. And in the program, you can read a synopsis before you see what's on stage. And I always recommend people research the show before you come. Even do it with a musical that's in English. You will appreciate it so much better. That's just a little piece of advice from my end, but it certainly helped me in appreciation of all musical styles, especially plays and drama.
All right, well, we're going to go ahead to commercial and have more with Josh when we come back.
Hey everybody, we're here at Penn Cinema to find out what everyone's been talking about. Excuse me, why do you choose Penn Cinema?
I like the seats. They're really comfy. They're a lot nicer than most other places. This is my house.
Oh, well, this place is great. I mean, it's popcorn. We got a slushy machine over there. We got 3 clocks. 3 clocks for the Lidditz, the Lancaster, and the F for the time, just in case, you don't know what time it is in your area. That's why I love this place. They think about everybody, very friendly.
Has a nicer environment.
It's clean and comfortable. It feels independent. It doesn't feel like part of a system. Like, it feels like as big as it is and as polished as it is, that it feels independent,
Bigger screen, better quality.
So it's really close. It's very clean. We come here all the time.
What do you like about Penn Cinema?
The seats are my favorite thing. Very comfortable. On the rump.
3D IMAX, the whole shebang.
It has a down-home feel, and we love the atmosphere that Penn has created. He really tries to take into account what people want in a theater.
It's really clean, and the seats are really comfy.
Yeah, I like the seats. It's the best movie theater to come to.
Well, you've heard what they have to say. Now come see for yourself. Check out Penn Cinema for first-class movies in a first-rate theater. Located at 541 Airport Road in Lidditz, PA. And we're back on the Lancast with Josh Rinier. Josh, Opera Lancaster is celebrating its 60th season this year. What kind of things are you guys doing to celebrate?
Well, one of the newest things we've done with the organization is added the Community Opera Series. I know I keep hitting on that, but it's something I'm particularly proud of, because up until this point we had only been doing 2, if we were lucky, 3 productions a year, and now we've expanded our programming to offer 7 different things. So that's pretty big for this season, and it's something that will become a staple now for us. But it also means that we've got this week coming up in April, Opera Week, April 16th through the 22nd, where in downtown Lancaster you're going to be able to run into some flash mobs. You're going to run into some singing on the streets, a couple displays around town, some lectures on opera, one of which I'm doing. So if you want to hear about the origins of opera, you can come out and listen to that one. It should be a good time. And we're also finishing that week off with a grand gala celebrating our 60th anniversary, and Tony Lachura from the hit HBO series Boardwalk Empire is coming here to actually MC that evening with Tom Ryan from the Historical Society and our own John Derenkamp. And another thing about Tony is that he's also a tenor, and he had a very successful career at the Metropolitan Opera. So we're very fortunate to have him coming here, and that'll be an evening full of history about opera in Lancaster, some witty banter, and some stories from their time on the Met. Tony's absolutely hilarious. For an older guy. I mean, I was pleased to see how entertaining he was. He can literally walk into a room and command it with humor, and he doesn't even have to speak. So he's pretty funny. And we've also got some of our own all-star singers coming back from past productions and things to sing during that. So it should be a very entertaining evening, and we're excited.
How many shows are you doing for the 60th anniversary?
For the whole season, main stage shows, we did a fully staged production of Così fan tutte back in October. We're doing a Mall and the Night Visitors at the Ware Center on January 7th. And we're finishing off with Madama Butterfly fully staged in May of 2012. And that's kind of going to be the cherry on top of the sundae for the season, because it's got absolutely gorgeous music, and it's full of that schmaltzy good stuff that if you're looking for a way to get out of the doghouse, take your other half to see Madama Butterfly.
Well, we've covered a lot about the opera and Opera Lancaster, but I'd like to learn a little bit more about you. What is your background musically in this area?
Sure. Well, I'm actually born and raised here in the city. And my music career really didn't take off until my senior year of high school, where I actually discovered I could sing. Up until that point, I was, interested in becoming a computer scientist, or doing, one of the many things that are a little bit more financially stable than nonprofit arts, but and being an artist, but. I developed a great love for music, and decided to be a music education major, and was, of course, accepted to one of the best schools for music in the area, which is Millersville University. And by my sophomore year of college, I realized that it just wasn't for me. I was actually teaching a group of students, and we were doing a circle game, and the next thing you know, somebody's misbehaving. They're on the floor, and I'm told to do something about this crazy kid, and I can't do anything, and I walk out of the room, and that's the end of me as a teacher. I decide that
that's a great.
It's time to go pursue something different. So I went and became a business major. I went to Lebanon Valley College for a year, and ultimately ended up back at Millersville because I missed it. I missed music, and I came back for the music program at Millersville and for their music business and technology program, which basically helped form me for the real world. And during that time, being so close to Opera Lancaster, I was able to get involved on the board and continue to build upon that experience, and here I am.
So you said opera was not necessarily your favorite musical outlet. What is your favorite musical outlet?
It's not that I don't like to sing opera. I do sing opera, and I actually sing it very well, and there's not much else I can sing thanks to my classical training, and it's really what my voice lends it to. But I do like musical theater. It's not your bouncy kind of musical theater. I'm more of your Stephen Sondheim, Into the Woods, Assassins, Sweeney Todd, that's my all-time favorite there. Jekyll and Hyde, Fiddler on the Roof. stuff that actually a lot of people consider on the fringe and call it American opera. A lot of that can actually be classified as that. Les Mis, Evita, they all can be considered American opera, or rock opera, or modern opera. Not to say that Evita is. Evita is probably more British because it was written by a Brit. But that's kind of more my genre of what I really enjoy. From a music standpoint, not musical only.
So you just mentioned two of my favorite musicals. One of them being Fiddler on the Roof, and the other one being Sweeney Todd. How'd you feel about the Hollywood production of Sweeney Todd with?
Yeah, I was extremely excited when I heard that they were doing that because, I saw what they did with the producers. And now obviously it's a different director and a studio and everything doing these two different movies. But, I really enjoyed the producers and what they did with that. But, it was okay. They changed the music. They adapted it for people who really couldn't sing. And, they got away with it. They made some money. Who can fault them for that?
So you're not giving it a whole positive...
No, I mean, do I own it? Yes. Do I prefer the original score? You bet your ass I do.
Well, if you could choose any part to sing or to be in some sort of musical production, what would that part be?
Really, it's a part that I could never sing, and I would love to sing the role of Sweeney Todd, but I could never sing it because I'm a tenor, and he's down here and I'm all the way up here, so that's pretty much how it goes. And I typically, I'm kind of the opposite of everybody else. I like the villain in the plot, and I would love to be the villain, and tenors are never the villain.
So we'll have to write a musical specifically for you. You just have to write. Wait. You have to write your own.
We're on it.
So, what does a typical day, working at the Opera Lancaster, look like for you as far as preparing for shows, picking the shows, finding the?
Well, it's really varied. I do a lot of stuff with numbers. Bills come in, bills go out. Do a lot of budgeting and looking at where we can head and what a production can make, what I need to fundraise. It is extremely varied. Now, on the day of a production, or a week of a production, I'm mainly focused on that. Everything else that's clerical or has to do with, long-term planning or even short-term planning for the company takes back burner, and my full focus is on the production, going out and, making sure that everything's going smoothly in the venue, load-ins happening, that any promotional material is going in there. Do the directors, the production manager, do they need any assistance from a company standpoint? It's extremely varied, but, today, for example, I spent most of my day picking up with some bills and clerical items, preparing for them all, getting promotional materials in line, working on press releases, and working on some fundraising materials, which is the primary function of my job, which is to assist the president in fundraising for the company. Because with most arts organizations, you cannot support yourselves just on gate ticket sales alone. It really takes a community to fund us, to do what we do, and to do it well. And that's my main function. So I'm sorry I'm not as specific as I could be about that, but there is really no set schedule for me every day. It's just kind of, I think about this organization constantly. A lot of it's brainstorming. I do little things that I like to call brain dumps, where I'll just completely empty all of my thoughts and ideas onto paper and decide, well, we'll proceed with this and we won't proceed with that. And I have a very hands-on president, Dave Kohler, and he and I will go back and forth for hours on some of these things, and then we develop a plan and we present it to the board, and they either say yay or nay or fix this, and that's kind of the brief synopsis of it.
that you're necessarily getting ready for constantly, is it kind of like a lull for you? Do you feel like that's the boring time, or is that when you're really hyped up for fundraising and planning?
It really is a great time for fundraising and planning, but those things are always going on, simultaneously, or at least they have been right now, because even though we've been around 60 years, the company's only moving into this very professional standpoint. Now, it's not to say that we're not professional. We are professional now, but we've only moved into that stage, and that means that we're doing a lot more planning ahead. And once I feel that everything's in that right space, then maybe my time will free up. But I have not had a time where I've not been really busy. And the last time I did feel kind of bored, I created the community opera series.
Which means you'll never be bored again, right?
That's right. No, it just means that everybody's expecting me to create more.
So if someone was interested to find out more about Opera Lancaster, where could they go to find this?
It's simple. www.operalancaster.org. It is the best resource, in my opinion. Secondary resource would be to call our box office, which is actually the Millersville box office. That's 717-872-3811. You can also come down and visit us at the Ware Center. I'm usually there, and you're welcome to come back to my office and chat if I'm not super busy. But those are the main ways to contact us, and you can find my company email on the website, and I'm pretty diligent about getting back to everybody who emails me. So, that's probably your best way.
Well, thank you very much, Josh, for taking the time out of your day to come and talk with us.
No, thank you guys.
We hope you've been enjoying the Lancast.
This episode was produced by myself, David Moulton, with show notes by Keith and Lauren Slesser.
All pertinent links to this episode can be found in the show notes at thelancast.com.
If you specifically liked this episode, we ask that you consider making a donation.
Every little bit helps. Even $1 a show can keep us going.
If you'd like to help support us, you can do so by going to thelancast.com/donate.
And don't forget to subscribe in iTunes and tell a friend about the show.
So, for the Lancast, I'm David Moulton.
And I'm Keith Slesser.
Asking, are you in the cast?